Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. We'll be starting here in about 2 minutes. Give some people a chance to join in. Before we begin, this session is being recorded and will be available hopefully within 24 hours after the session. So if you miss anything, not to worry, you can always come back and catch the recording. So we'll be back here in about 2 minutes. Thank you. All right, I think we've given enough time here. So thank you for joining today's webinar brought to you by CoreView. Today we are excited to bring you two special guests, Dave and Crystal Kawula. Both are Microsoft MVPs and both have gone through a lot of the Ignite sessions and have gotten some great information to present to you on things that you may have missed or things that maybe you didn't necessarily care about it when you were going through the sessions, but they've watched it for you. So looking forward to some really great content. I've seen the content. They're not going to talk about the metaverse as far as I know, so we don't have to worry about that. But it's great to be able to present this and give you this information. If you have any questions, please utilize the Q&A, the questions box. If we have time, we'll answer some in line. Otherwise, we'll be answering them at the end. And with that, Dave, Crystal, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of our attendees who are catching us live today. Oh, we're pretty excited, Crystal and myself. We're only a week away from being able to present back in person. We're going to be on an airplane traveling to Florida. It's going to be great. And we filled our heads with so much information from Microsoft Ignite this year. Man, there was a lot of great content, wasn't there, Crystal?
Too much. It's a lot to go through and a lot of timing to try and catch what we wanted to catch. But there is a lot of really good information, and we're excited to share some of that with you.
Yeah, and I just want to give everybody a little gold nugget for the Ignite sessions, something that I learned while we were taking and trying to capture as much content as we can. There's a resource download button when you go to the Microsoft Ignite website, and if you click on that, it actually provides you a PowerShell script, Crystal. And that PowerShell script, you just punch in your session code that you want to watch, and it'll download the session for you in an MP4 format. And if there's PowerPoints available, it'll actually download all that content for you. So that's pretty cool. Just make sure you have lots of drive space, though, because if you pick a whole bunch of sessions,
if you do what I did,
you might fill your drive, as Crystal did. So, all right, let's get going. So the first thing that we'll talk about here, Crystal, updates to Azure Arc. So this one here was a pretty cool one. What were some of the pieces that you picked up from Azure Arc that we should really focus on?
Just for those, I don't even know how many are out there. They didn't give us numbers on who's using Azure Arc, but the single pane of glass for your environment, both on-prem and in Azure, is invaluable when you're trying to manage a large network space.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the big pieces for me is that, we often get asked by customers, that, you know, I want to have the same experience that we see inside of the Azure portal while managing our on-prem infrastructure. And not even just on-prem infrastructure, Azure Arc can basically extend anywhere. So if you're in Microsoft Azure and you've got IaaS instances that you're managing there for your virtual infrastructure, and let's say that you've got your favorite cloud of the choice, let's say you've got some infrastructure inside of AWS, you can actually extend Azure Arc to pretty much anything. So not just on-prem, you can go cross-cloud with that as well. So that's pretty cool. And a couple of the other pieces are, I work very closely with the Microsoft product team, as you know, Crystal, so do you, with Azure Stack HCI. We've been with Microsoft in their hyper-converged journey since basically the very beginning. And to see the evolution of Azure Stack HCI is really cool for me. And especially the deep and native integration with the extensions and the capabilities that are coming down to Azure Stack HCI. So that's, for me, that's a big one.
Mm-hmm. And this year they did do the enhanced integration with VMware and vSphere, which is huge for people who are still over in the VMware boat.
That's most of enterprise infrastructure still today, but that's okay. And the cool part is with Arc integration and integration with vSphere, we can do things like creating VMs now via Azure Arc. So that's pretty interesting for me. Other updates for Azure Arc is that we actually are publishing another book, and this book is actually going to feature a ton of content on Azure Arc and most of these new things. So stay tuned, follow us on Twitter, and so we're going to be having some pretty important announcements coming on, you know, some step-by-step guidance for all this stuff as well.
No official release date yet, but it is coming soon. So just keep an eye. No, it's not coming today.
Yeah, we'll finish it. Stay tuned, it'll come today.
It will not come today.
All right, sticking with the Azure Stack HCI theme, this one's very cool. How about the ability to run your Azure virtual desktops, your VDI infrastructure delivered on-prem from the Azure portal down through Azure Stack HCI? That's pretty cool, right, Crystal? We've been working with VDI for a long time.
Yeah, we've been waiting for something like this for quite a while, so it's very exciting for us.
Yeah, and it's kind of that one button push. And it was funny, we're doing this session today, and what was I supporting on a support case with one of my customers? I had to reinstall some engineering apps inside of an Azure virtual desktop instance. So this is pretty cool. If you haven't heard some of the workload choices that you have, this was actually released a little while ago, but it's now got support for Windows 10 and 11 for multi-session desktops, and this also work on-prem. So basically what this means for you, Crystal, is that instead of you having to set up an RDSH host running Windows Server 2019 or Server 2022, providing a shared desktop to our users for that experience, we can actually do multi-session desktops on Windows 10 and 11, which is pretty cool because sometimes you want that direct experience. So that's neat. Mm-hmm. And then there's also auto scale up features as well. So we can auto scale those Azure virtual desktops, and also now provide user-based stop and start functionality, which, as you would think, is actually pretty important if you're going to manage a hosted VDI solution, because when you go to connect and your dedicated VM is not on, you're not going to have a very good user experience.
Speaking from experience.
Speaking from experience, that is correct. So just touching base, we have lots of time in the session today. I just want to remind everyone that we do have a live Q&A here as well. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to post them up in the chat. We should have some time to take some of these questions in line. For me, the journey that Microsoft has taken with Azure Virtual Desktop, formerly known as Windows Virtual Desktop, is pretty cool. And this is something that we've actually seen with a common theme at Microsoft Ignite, is rebranding of things that we once knew. So, and this is typical for, you know, marketing organization inside of Microsoft. They want to try to get a consistent look and feel across things. So we're going to try to help you work through the weeds of what you used to know and what's there now.
I will say two things that I noticed with a lot of the sessions were the focus. There is a rebranding, predominantly about things being cross-cloud. right? So that it's no longer just for Microsoft, it is for Microsoft solutions for many different platforms that you use. We're no longer saying you have to use ours to get the best. You can use ours on what works best for you, which is really nice. And the other thing that I noticed was secure, 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 secure. That was the major focus of, I want to say, 90% of the sessions I saw was, even though it was talking about feature sets and new features and new things that are going on, a large focus kept coming back to, and the thing I kept seeing everything come back to was you need to secure. And everything we're doing is to try and have it collaborate, work together, everything working well together as a team, but also how to get everything working well together as a team and keep it secure.
And I have one message for our attendees here is thou shalt not next finish install something anymore. Anything you touch has a security component in it, and you need to make sure that you lock it down. And Azure Virtual Desktop is no different from that matter, Crystal, because you should be taking and loading up some type of advanced persistent threat protection with support now for Microsoft Defender ATP inside of your Azure Virtual Desktop VMs. And you want to make sure that you take and that you're securing all of that infrastructure. I go through this time and time again with customers out there. And it's actually very interesting to see that security journey that Microsoft has taken, moving way up in the Gartner Magic Quadrant now. Before, 3 or 4 years ago, Microsoft was down. Now they're like almost at the top, one of the leading vendors in this security space, because they can own everything end to end, from your identity to everything you're connecting to. So you'll see that as kind of a running theme that we'll go through.
Speaking of next finish.
Oh, you'd like me to press next finish? Okay, sounds good. Skynet. What?
Skynet is actually a bad thing, right? Your reference is not the best.
Well, I wrote the slide deck. I can put anything that I want in there.
Just wondering if you remember the movie?
Well, I don't know. We haven't seen really where AI is taking us yet. The machine learning that's up in the cloud. We don't know what's happening up there.
Okay, well, this is good stuff. This is the good stuff.
This is the good Skynet.
Goodness.
So what are some of the things for, the automation?
So some of the things they were talking about with Azure Auto Manage is that it is no longer just for an Azure, which is a big key thing, that you can actually use Auto Manage on your Windows virtual machines, on your Windows devices, your Linux. It has Linux, Windows Server, and bare metal support now, which is the key. Is we want you to use it so that you can actually enjoy it across platform. So you're no longer limited as much by what OS or what it is you're building on.
Yeah, and I think going back to that security discussion, Crystal, I think one of the big pieces here is that it's very easy with cloud-based infrastructure, any infrastructure for that matter, to have what I call a configuration drift. And when you have that configuration drift, oh, you know what, I really meant to click that secure my server button, but I forgot because, I had to go get my $14 Starbucks at noon every day. And that was the time when I was going to go click that button. And so I forgot to do it. And so now you go home at the end of the day, and that time between noon till 5, after you left for the day, maybe that threat actor's in there now. They took advantage of that, and they're exploiting your systems because you have a configuration drift. You're not consistent. And so for me, Azure Auto Manage, if I had to sum this up with one word, is consistency for your infrastructure. Because as operational support teams, one of the things that happens is that we get overwhelmed on a near daily basis with different issues that are coming in from the organization. So being able to take and have something work behind us and make sure that we're kind of cleaning up and having that consistent look and feel across the infrastructure is just so important.
And it both works on keeping consistency when you're building out your environment, as well as keeping consistency post setup as well. So it will actually watch for, like what you said, the drift, the changes that are made. And if something is not set up, or something shifts and changes it off your my words are not working, your main profile, the profile setup that you have made, it will actually try to autocorrect it. And it will alert you and let you know that there are issues. And if it's not able to autocorrect it, it will warn you and tell you that there is this issue. So perhaps it's a threat actor, perhaps it's something just breaking. You're going to actually have it A, try to fix it on its own, and B, let you know that it is running into issues.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know,
I wanted to ask you something though. Are you limited by the profiles and stuff that are set up in Auto Manage?
No, I don't think so. I think you can completely customize those profiles and get different configuration sets throughout your infrastructure. So maybe you only want Auto Manage to use just a couple of these features right now to get started. Within a few quick clicks, you can actually take and customize all those configuration profiles and push them out.
So like if you have a manufacturing floor server that you need to set up, that you don't want it to be running everything that is in the Microsoft best practice, you literally need to limit certain things, you can do so. You can set up custom profiles for pretty much anything you want. You can take what you want. You do have the best practices ones in there available to you, so you can see what, even as a learning tool, it shows you what the best practices are when setting these up. But you can also go, okay, this won't work for me. I need to limit this. I need to add this. I use this particular software already. So you're not mandated to use everything they have. It's just options available to you.
Fantastic. And before we move on to the next one, just a couple other technology topics that I wanted to bring up, if you weren't aware of this yet, is the fact that you can take and now hot patch your servers in Windows Server 22, kernel-based hot patching, so reducing those amount of reboots that are required. That's absolutely huge for our uptime. No more scheduling those maintenance windows to reboot things. You know, we can take and we can manage that a lot more effectively. And the next one I wanted to talk about is just, you know, Ned Pyle at Microsoft, probably one of his favorite features right now is SMB over Quick. SMB over Quick allows us to securely access our file resources without a VPN. And you're thinking to yourself, wow, how is that possible? You need to check this out. It is really cool. And, you know, this is one of those features that I think Microsoft is on really the leading edge with, Crystal. But I think within the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to start to see a lot wider adoption of this, especially with their flagship desktop operating system out now with Windows 11. So
this was actually that we watched the one session on this that covered Auto Manage, SMB over Quick, and extended network for Azure. And honestly, it was one of my favorite sessions. It was so full of information. So I really recommend, if you're going back through the sessions, go see that one. It's Ned Pyle and
somebody else,
2 other people. It was very good. So if you can find it, I highly recommend. Another thing I wanted to point out with the Azure Auto Manage and these tools is that it's free.
Nice.
So that's my favorite price for anything, is free, and it's a free feature that you can take advantage of.
So the one thing you have to know is if you're ever watching for an Ignite session, if you just search for Ned, you're going to find a really good session, because honestly, he normally wins like the best speakers at these events, because he is really good. And you'll see pictures of his dogs in there too.
So much information. Yeah. Like, that guy has so much information to share.
All right. The next one, Crystal, what is this?
This is the rebranding we were talking about. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So because they are, as we said, trying to make sure that we can use these products across platforms. So you're no longer having the same limitations we once did. Microsoft went through a lovely rebranding. That was key point in almost every Defender session, is that it is no longer, everything is Microsoft's Defender for everything.
Well, the problem is that how are you going to use Azure Defender on AWS? That's probably not going to work. So we'll change the name to Microsoft Defender.
It will work.
Your friendly features
because it is
are
no
going to be there
longer
for you.
Azure Defender.
Yes. And so, yes, we've been in this game a long time. We've seen a lot of rebrands over the years, but this one here is actually pretty cool because some of the really neat things about the cross-cloud capabilities is that the out-of-box configuration sets going cross-cloud, it's not like they're just throwing an agent at you and saying, oh yeah, you can just install this agent here now, and now we're cross-cloud compatible. No, there's actually like 150 best practice configurations and secure score integration out of the box. So it's not just a checkbox. They've actually done some heavy lifting and redevelopment on this as well.
And as mentioned, they made commitments to continue this. This is their goal going forward, is to continue the team sport mindset, that security, if we're not all working together, we're working against each other, right? So we, as a whole, all corporations need to accept that we're not always going to be the right choice. And sometimes we need to bring in other teammates to accentuate our platform. So we just need to understand that instead of trying to just compete, we need to be competitive, yes, but work together to keep our clients secure. And that's the key.
Yeah, and one of the other things that's really neat about Defender for Cloud, formerly Azure Defender, is the fact that this can not only reach cross-cloud, this can also reach your on-prem infrastructure as well via Azure Arc. And so we can take and we can onboard those servers that you've got on-prem, and we can connect them via Azure Arc, and we can take and we can push our threat protection agents down. We can have all of our favorite features going down there. We can have all of our vulnerability assessments running inline, real time, on-prem, in cloud, cross-cloud, basically everywhere. If you were sitting on a spaceship somewhere that was connected to the internet, you could probably manage it with Microsoft Defender for Cloud. But that's actually a new name. That's Microsoft Defender for Space. It's not out yet. That's actually patent pending, so can't mention that anywhere else.
You can go call Microsoft and ask for it. Say, Dave said this is available.
That's right, absolutely. And so sticking with our security theme here, this one here is very, very cool to me, Crystal, is the fact that, you used to have separate SKUs in order to take advantage of all of this advanced next generation cybersecurity protection, advanced threat protection.
Pricey.
Endpoint detection response. It was pricey. Most of this was loaded into the E5 licenses. So if you are a customer that's out there that is maybe a smaller customer, you can take advantage of many of these features now by just having the Microsoft 365 Business Premium SKU and not having to go on the full load E5. And so that's pretty cool, is the fact that they're bringing this down for support for smaller organizations. I think they set up to like 500 people or something like that. But what's really neat about this is the fact that in the landscape of cybersecurity, we've seen probably the most prolific year of ransomware that we've ever seen this year. Like, you look at the Kaseya attack, which basically instantly took down thousands and thousands of corporations, like not systems, corporations delivered that fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what we're finding is that the vendors are working together, and the vendors are trying to create solutions, especially Microsoft, to make sure that we have a safe and secure computing environment. And this computing environment, one of the things that we have to understand is that we're still living inside the realm of the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, we have some shots. Yes, we're able to move around a little bit more, but we're still living in the realm of this pandemic. And what's happened is that we still have many individuals in our workforce that are working from home. Those are easy targets for the threat actors that are out there, because typically those home networks are not secured all that well. Typically, we rush to create a VPN connection to get them connecting back into the office. And one of the things that we lacked is we said, oh, well, just here's a VPN and you can just remote desktop back into the office, and that's how you're going to get there. But we don't have any advanced threat protection on those devices that are connecting in. So one of the things I want you to seriously consider is that, endpoint detection response and advanced threat protection on anything that touches our corporate network. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't have that level of visibility, we can't protect our employees and our individuals from the things that they don't know.
And the tools that they're giving us to find those vulnerabilities are immensely useful. You can now run the threat and vulnerability management. I was actually watching a few demos where they were showing, it's basically you run it and it's going to show you, okay, here's what we found that you're doing really well. Here's what we found that you're not doing so well. And here's some recommendations that they don't just say, hey, you need to fix this, but they give you the recommendations on how to fix it.
Yeah.
And that for the average SMB, they may not have the, I'm going to say the exceptionally fully skilled resource that knows how to fix those things. So it's really nice to be able to give those pathways and those steps that are need to be taken to secure our environments.
Well, and we look at this piece, Crystal, as the vulnerability and threat assessments that we have. Traditionally, organizations would say, okay, well, we do a yearly or bi-yearly vulnerability assessment for our infrastructure. We have a standard operating environment build that we have, and that's how we're going to build Windows 10, Windows 11, or that's how we're going to build our servers. And our security team has gone through that. Well, the days are gone when you can take and do yearly or bi-yearly threat and vulnerability management. This needs to be real time and in line, because you need to be staying on top of this, because the threats that are coming out on a weekly and monthly basis consistently change. And so one of the things that I use the threat and vulnerability management as part of the Microsoft Cloud suite of Defender products is I use them to build nearly inline security baselines, because as those recommendations for and remediation suggestions are coming out, we can actually build that into our policy. So as we start adding devices to the network, and as we look at securing existing artifacts on the network, we can make sure that we have that safe and secure computing environment. And in all honesty, Microsoft is making that process a lot easier for us, because with one agent, one central portal to go view all of this information, it's so much easier. And this extends just from small business, because this is for all of your enterprise computing environments as well. And not just for desktops, it's for servers. It's not just for servers, it's also for all of your platform
IoT
as a service
stuff now too.
IoT, absolutely. It's for anything that you can think of that's a resource inside of your Azure portal needs to be secured and managed in a similar fashion. So you get threat and vulnerability management suggestions across the deck now with Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So that's, to me, having that is huge, because there's so many different ways to wiggle your way into an organization. That's a really big one.
Absolutely.
All right.
I don't know. Next slide. There you go.
All right. Continuing with our security, because like you said, security was everything.
Secure. That was, if there was one thing they were trying to drill into our heads through every session, even the team sessions had aspects of security to it. It's the need for security right now. That has been out of, one of the things that came out of the pandemic was the recognition of how very vulnerable we are. So locking everything down as much as we can, but still being able to empower users to do their jobs without feeling like they have major handcuffs. That was key to pretty much all the collaboration, the features, everything that they're focusing on this year is all about being able to make sure we're safe, but still being able to get the job done.
Well, and if you want to fail a security audit right now, stick with your, I need global administrator rights to perform to do this particular activity. I'm just going to assign myself global administrator rights, and look, everything works. I equate that to the old days where it's, we're going to install software, but I need to give all my users domain admins. You're going to what? Yes, everything works on the network. Yes, and all the bad guys can get into absolutely everything as well. So now don't do that. We use privileged identity management, and now extensions have been made via Microsoft's push for zero trust. And let's just reset here real quick. Zero trust to me is actually a simple concept. If you're not familiar with this, I'll sum this up in an on-prem analogy for you. Okay, so when we have an Active Directory environment, we have this group called domain administrators. By default, when you next finish your install of Active Directory, the domain administrators group is an administrator on all servers, on all desktops, on everything. That's very bad, because if domain administrators gets compromised, then everything gets compromised. So here's the rule. Domain administrators group only needs to log on to domain controllers. Then you create another group called server administrators. Server administrators only needs to log into servers. Then you have another group, desktop administrators only needs to log into desktops. We can use local administrator password solutions to reset those passwords on those local desktops as well. And that's huge for us, because then we can limit the lateral movement and pass the hash type attacks through the environment. And we can kind of fence off where we're going with this, right? And so we take that same approach of zero trust with everything. Assume you have a breach, right?
That's right. I was
Don't think
say,
that you're going to get breached.
One of the phrases that came up a lot was just assume breach, meaning assume that someone's going to get in there. Someone's going to have a compromised account. At some point, you need to make sure that at every twist and turn, there's a block.
Yeah.
You assume vulnerabilities. You assume that even though you think you're one step ahead, you're not. And then you take every measure you can to make sure that, okay, they may get in, but they're only going to get this. And then they may get in somewhere else, but they're only going to get this. And then you prepare and lock it down as much as you can, but still giving access to those that need that access. Need, not want, as everybody seems to always want domain admins and global admins and access to everything, so that they never have to ask for, help to load a driver or whatever. But those that need access get access to what they need and what they need only.
Crystal, I just figured something out. As parents of 7 children, one of the reasons that we're so good at IT is because we know how to say the word no.
Absolutely.
You want that access? No.
No.
Can you explain why?
No.
And if you keep
because
arguing,
you don't need it.
If you keep arguing, I'm going to put
I'll
you
lock
in,
you down further.
I'm going to put your machine in timeout.
That's right.
Okay, so some of the things that have been extended from the big announcements at Ignite for me is we do a lot of work with Microsoft Endpoint Manager for managing desktops, formerly known as Intune. And so one of the things that you do with that is you're going to take and you're going to connect in via Azure Active Directory for a lot of those devices. And conditional access is a big portion of what we do on a daily basis. So as a rule of thumb, take a good hard look at your organization. If you're a organization that's based in Europe, and you know that you're never going to have any logins coming from North America, make sure that you start doing country blocks with conditional access. You can also now do device filtering. You can do conditional access app filtering, better overview dashboards and templates to see what's going on. The other thing that you really want to do is you want to start enforcing multi-factor authentication rules depending on where you're logging in. If you're in an on-prem and you're there, we consider the desktop to be a valid security token. And we're not necessarily going to force you to MFA that all the time. But if you start stepping off the corporate network and you're logging in from a hotel or something like that, we're going to start enforcing MFA rules and things like that. So there's been huge improvements inside of there for conditional access that you need to check out. Because
did you know there's still lots of people not using MFA?
If you're not using MFA, you need to be using MFA, because you want to know one of the interesting parts, and Crystal and I have been part of, it's been 11 ransomware recovery teams this year. It has been absolutely awful year for customers and colleagues that are out there that call us in. And I have a simple rule of thumb as we walk into those environments, because you know what? Most of those don't enforce MFA until after we're done.
Until after. And
so the rule of thumb is if you RDP to it, you MFA it.
Yeah.
End of story. You have to multi-factor authentication those things, because weak passwords and things like that are just low-hanging fruit for the bad guys that are out there. Don't give them an easy way in, because if you make it difficult, maybe they'll move on to another organization.
Because there are a lot of people out there not using MFA.
Correct.
They can move on.
Yes. They can just got nothing to see here.
That's right.
Just move on to the guys down the street and spend your time over there. Sorry for the guys down the street. And if the guys down the street want some help, hey, we've got contact information to help you enable MFA. All right. I had to bring this one up.
Yes. So I didn't get to sit this session, but you did, and you were pretty excited about it. So I'm going to let you go ahead on this one.
How could you not talk about something called Chaos Studio?
Right?
It's going to be probably rebranded.
I'm pretty sure that's the only reason you went to that session in the first place. You're like, what's this? Chaos? I like it.
It's probably going to be rebranded to Microsoft Chaos Studio. And I don't know, maybe all of Azure will just get rebranded to Microsoft now for cross-cloud. Who knows? But anyways, Azure Chaos Studio, how about the ability to take and simulate real-world outages for your applications? Multiple built-in scenarios. Who doesn't want to pull the plug on the data center? Hello? You know, that's a big power cable at the back. Oh, what happens when your generator runs out of fuel? Oh, let's simulate that. There's like a built-in simulation for that. But the simulations for testing your applications go well beyond just failures, Crystal. You have to test how this application is going to behave around the world. And one of the things that we've come to learn is that we're actually delivering this session from outer space right now. We are the proud owners of Starlink. And so we're technically in space right now coming to you. And one of the things that we see with that is increased latency. So depending on your connection, not everybody is going to be coming from a fast fiber optic, well-connected configuration. Some are going to have a lot of latency, and it could be depending on where your application lives in the world as well. The fact of the matter is it takes time for a packet to work its way around the world. The further away it is, the more latency that you have, and the worse your application is going to potentially perform. So with Chaos Studio, you can actually emulate all of these things. So that's very cool.
Well, and with the increase in work from anywhere scenarios that honestly, post-pandemic, this is the new norm. This isn't, okay, now we're going to be returned to work. We are working. This is work. This is what work is going to start looking like from now on. So being able to simulate what happens when I can't access my data center anymore, what happens when I'm sitting on a beach, a wave takes away my laptop, and now I have to go work from the hotel computer, because that never happens.
No, because if I was sitting on the beach with a laptop, I'm doing something wrong. So just as a heads up, you can work from the beach.
I disagree. I say you're doing something right.
As long as you're not on vacation, because if you're on vacation, just leave your laptop in your room and go enjoy your vacation, because we haven't been able to travel for a long time. So don't take your laptop to the beach. That's a bad idea. I'll put that in a slide.
But if you did, you need to know what's going to happen. There are so many what ifs out there. It's really nice to be able to actually plan and see what would happen so that you can have a proper scenario ready.
And come on, who's not going to want to add Chaos Studio to their list of projects for 2022? So yes, and we're going to have the bi-weekly Chaos meeting. Yes, absolutely. So
isn't that every meeting we have?
Could be, but now it's actually official.
Oh, okay.
All right. Next one is looking after monitoring all of this infrastructure that's out there. Oh boy, are you an organization that today has all of your alerts going to a central mailbox and your phone blows up constantly, where you're getting zero battery life because your phone floats across the table because it does nothing but just vibrate all the way across until it falls off and crashes and breaks the screen.
You can't see me, but I'm raising my hand.
If you are one of these individuals, then you need Azure Monitor, because Azure Monitor is a great place to put all of those alerts where we can take and we can track all of that information. So we can forward all of those alerts up there. And some of the big updates to Azure Monitor for us is for me, the App Insights. So now we can take a look at App Insights for open source. We can have .NET, Node.js, Python apps, older apps that are out there, vendor neutral sources, ingesting information into Azure Monitor. I'm a network guy at heart, Crystal, so I do a lot of work with firewalls, have been doing a lot of work with firewalls for 25 plus years. And one of the biggest challenges that we had in the infrastructure out there was when we were setting up site-to-site VPNs coming into Azure. Going and grabbing those logs from your Azure VPN gateway was sometimes challenging for us. And so now we've got enhanced troubleshooting capabilities for both Azure Firewall and VPN Gateway raw thank you, Microsoft, because there's been situations where I've actually worked with Azure Virtual WAN and we didn't have insights into any of that. And we had to cut a support ticket to get those that deep dive information. So having more of that available to us is very, very important from a network perspective. The other thing that we're really recommending as well is fencing off infrastructure by using network isolation.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of cases, depending on how you're configuring network isolation, you can think of basically setting up like IPsec between individual machines in the network, masking them off, saying, these can talk to this domain controller, but these ones can't talk here, with actual software-based network isolation like that. Now we can ingest that information up with Azure Monitor. So that's pretty cool as we go through and try to secure things.
Excellent.
All right. All right.
I'm not trying to be, I'm just rushing you a little.
Oh, we have lots of time. We have lots of time.
All right. SQL Server 2022. There was a few. It's available now for one.
Yes.
So that was a nice big announcement that it is available. And honestly, I didn't sit much of the SQL ones because I am not a SQL girl. Sorry, guys.
Well, one of the biggest things that I have is we work actually with a lot of our customers on a daily basis with SQL Server applications. Pretty much, you can virtually raise your hand right now if you have some sort of SQL Server infrastructure in your environment right now. One of the coolest things that I saw with SQL Server 2022 was the immediate capabilities for cloud connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've got the ability to take and use the built-in distributed availability groups to replicate all of your data up to Azure and use it as a DR site. And so that's a big one for me because sometimes you have those disaster that hit. You're going to have fire, flood. I add now forced fire into this mix because we've had a lot of that. Going through the Western U.S. and a lot of places in Europe have been struggling with fires. And so that can take out. And one of the big things that it takes out is it takes out power lines.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take out power lines, your infrastructure goes offline, because you're not going to have the ability to take and run those data centers for long with the fuel sources that are there. And so DR is something that can hit us very quickly, especially in a SQL Server world. And the ability to connect that up to the cloud so easily now is probably one of the biggest ones for me, because now even in the event that you have to take a facility maintenance, now I can really have that stretch and extended cluster up to the cloud as kind of built-in functionality. And so that's a really big one for me.
Absolutely.
All right. What do we got left?
Sentinel.
Yes, Microsoft Sentinel. This falls in so nicely with Skynet, because Skynet and
I
Sentinel.
did catch that, yes.
I always think of, whenever I see Sentinel, I always think of like X-Men. So you think of X-Men and those big things going after all of like the superheroes. That's what I think of from Sentinel.
You're pretty.
Stop digressing. So what is Azure Sentinel? If you're not aware of this right now, it's your security and information event management system. Think of it as your log aggregator. So we want to take and have a spot that's going to capture all logs from everything. And so Sentinel is just that catch-all, that bucket for everything. And so the problem is the same concept as having the email alerts coming into your inbox.
Inundating.
You can get
overwhelming.
And nobody checks it.
Yeah.
So if you have an inbox,
you become immune to them all.
Right? And so you get so many alerts coming through. How do you sift through what's actually important alerts inside of there? Well, you need to let the machine do it. So this is where Sentinel comes in to help you with this. And so what we do is we typically forward up like all the way from our firewalls. So firewalls, any of your network switches, any of your security appliances, key Windows servers, and we can forward all of that monitoring information up into your Azure Sentinel infrastructure. And one of the challenges that's happened is that that amount of information that's gone up there is just so hard for our security and operations teams to actually sift through that and figure out what's important, what's not. So one of the big enhancements is
the correlation of everything working together to give you a broader and more proactive view of what is happening in your network, what is happening in your environment. So now instead of you having to go, okay, I need to go check this log, I need to go check this log, and not knowing that what's relative and what's not, there's such an inundation of information, but you're now able to see, okay, we now know that you can see, one of the big things that was brought up to me is you can actually go back through this and see in, once again, a ransomware or a data breach, you can see when the network was penetrated by going back through this stuff. You can see how long they've been in your environment, and you can actually use this to know what to look for and figure out what vulnerabilities you had even through this as well. So it was really, really quite some interesting sessions on this.
Yeah, and the canned solutions for me are great. Like having things that are already pre-built, so new,
There's like 100 new ones, yeah.
100 new solutions in there. You know, user-based analytics, what you were talking about, integration with the Azure Synapse, and near real-time reporting. So
Yes.
just being able to get that information right at your fingertips when you need it. So yeah, if you're not using this right now, definitely something that you should put on your hit list for your 2022
When the pressure's
projects.
on, that real-time reporting is imperative.
Right. Well, and the cyber insurance vendors, in the event that you do have a ransomware attack, they'll actually look at this information to try to determine
Absolutely.
the point of origin as to where that attack actually came through from. And with that, I think we're going to have some time for some Q&A here. So Doug, did we have anything coming in for Q&A, or did you have any questions for us, Doug?
So far, not much in the Q&A, just a hi from New York City from Stan.
Nice.
But yeah, so if anybody does have questions, please do hit the Q&A. You know, I know you guys talked quite a bit about, you know, Azure and you know, desktop and remote desktop and all those fun things. What about for Microsoft 365 in general? Did you see anything good? Or anything that piqued your interest on the 365 front?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There seems to be some new enhancements announced for Microsoft Teams platform, where we've got some self-service capabilities now coming for what appears to be auto attendant. And you know, this was an interesting one because COVID-19 hits 18 months ago. And all of a sudden, everybody needs a remote communication solution. So we saw Teams projects that were scheduled for organizations that were slated for, you know, a year or two down the road. Okay, we need all of that implemented right now. And I saw, I don't even like the numbers that Microsoft tracked on Teams usage during the peak of COVID was in the hundreds of millions. And so now what we're faced with is organizations having Teams configurations that we're almost having to go back and reevaluate here again, because it's like, oh yeah, we really like all the native features that come in there, but now we want to take in and add some IP telephony capability. We want to, you know, assign some DIDs. We want to have direct dialing. We want to have all of those cool features added inside of here. We want auto attendant. We want, you know, the sidecar capability for our receptionists. When we were going to now use this to displace existing phone systems and take it to the next level. And so yeah, like some of those enhancements are absolutely huge.
Yeah, Teams isn't going anywhere. It's integrating into Windows 11 more and more. So they're adding basic Teams features now into the actual Windows platform. You can now control your mic from the taskbar. You can share files from the taskbar. It's assuming you're going to be using Teams on a regular basis.
Yeah, although it works for Teams, that taskbar microphone. I don't know if you read Paul Thurrott. He had a whole rant article about that because it doesn't work for every application.
No, it works
audio
for
controls.
Teams.
It works for Teams and other applications that have, you know, that support the API.
Yes.
But so I thought his rant was pretty interesting on that feature. Yeah, and you know, I know, you know, obviously one of the first things they announced that Satya announced right off the bat was Loop, and you know, this whole idea of, you know, integration across not just Teams, but also in Office and those types of things, and being able to really bring that collaboration space. That's obviously more for the information workers, not as much on the IT side. But I'm very excited about some of those things, just because of how we work here. We all work from home essentially, and having more tools that enable that cross collaboration and make it easier to work with each other and bring those teams together, I think is even better.
Absolutely. Cross collaboration for was kind of one of the key factors in every session, is that we're no longer just going to assume that you have this, that, or the other. We're going to assume you have a variety of things, and we're going to try and make sure that everything can work together, because we're all one team, right? We're all trying to get the same work done, and we're all trying to make sure we can all work together regardless of what your preference for browser, let's say, is, or your preference for database. So now it's all about just trying to make sure that we support the end user and give them the best, regardless of what their preference or what the company's preference or what the mandates are.
Yeah. And I thought your point too, when you were talking about extending things to AWS and VMware, about competition, it's like, yes, we're going to compete, but we all need to work together to make everything secure. So that's good to hear in terms of let's collaborate on the security thing. Understand the different people are on different platforms, but if we can all work on making sure it's secure across those platforms, it's better for everyone.
Absolutely.
Great. I am not seeing any more questions. I guess our audience, you must have answered everything as you're going through.
Except for Stan. Hi, Stan.
All right. Well, I think with that, we're probably good to go here. I just, once again, on behalf of Crystal and myself, and shout out to the attendees. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to the webinar here. And we really hope to see everyone that we can in live in-person events. Doing these digital ones is super fun, but we love in-person too.
I can't wait to see faces again, let me tell you. Like 3D faces, not just on a screen. Though I do love the faces on a screen. I really, really, really can't wait to see people again.
Same here. All right. Well, Dave, Crystal, thank you so much. Again, coreview.com. If you have any questions about CoreView, we're very happy to bring the session to you today. And with that, we'll go ahead and call it a wrap. Have a great day, everybody.